This video is the 2020 Saddleback Extreme Enduro. I forgot to turn the GoPro on at the start, so we're kind of picking up here in the middle. This was my third hard enduro ever, so I did the Bad Medicine Hard Enduro in Ohio, which is my first ever on the Husky 450. And then I rode that bike again at Tennessee Knockout in August, and progressed to the second amateur race, didn't make it past that, and actually ended up cooking the connecting rod big end bearing. So at that point I decided, I like this hard enduro thing, I want to get better at it, so I got a new bike. Who doesn't love an excuse to buy another motorcycle? So I picked up a KTM 300XC, one of the last of the carbureted bikes. TPI seems like a great thing, but I don't know that I want to be an early adopter of more technology at this point as a amateur racer with limited money to spend. So I had just bought this bike. I kind of found a bit of a rare deal in the sense that it had 8.5 hours on the hour meter when I bought it. I'd ridden it once or twice maybe before, or I guess I raced it once before this. I did a local hare scramble race on it, and at that point it was totally stock. And then for this race I made a few small upgrades. So you can see I've got bark busters on it. Of course, you got to have those. I bought the cheap little Tusk lever mounts that let the levers spin a little easier if you crash. I don't like breaking levers or bending levers. I put my bars on it because I'm tall. Of course, I did tires and mooses. So I had a Kenda Ibex, one of the gummy tires in the rear. Otherwise, the bike was really all stock. I guess it does have a skid plate on it too. It's got the AXP full coverage skid plate that gives you a bit of a linkage guard too. So overall, pretty much a stock bike, stock air forks and everything. I just put it on the comfort settings and figured we'd see what happened. And then I put radiator guards on it and I put a fan on it. So a couple little hard enduro things for situations like you see here, where you get hung up and you're trying to put power down with no fan. You're gonna overheat the bike. You can see a little bit how full the gas tank still is. This is right at the beginning of the race. This was the first bottleneck. I cut a lot of it out because it was pretty boring. I tried to go around it. Failed pretty miserably, burned a bunch of energy. All part of the learning experience, right? So I burned probably 10 minutes in this creek trying to make my way up it. All the earlier creek sections before this were downhill, which was great. Gave me a great sense of confidence, got me rolling, and then I hit this and was like, oh man, I don't know how to ride a two-stroke. Trying to put power down without spinning the wheel was a challenge for me. Even with the gummy tire, it just didn't feel like it was doing much. We'd gotten a bunch of rain a couple days before this race, and I don't think that helped at all. And the ground at Saddleback is not as consistent as you'd want. Like you see there's a bunch of rocks and stuff at the bottom of this creek. You expect that. Those rocks are in the dirt everywhere. It's not like you ride up out of this creek and you're out of the rocks. You can see as I roll up this and spray my buddy there with some dirt by accident. There's a bunch of little fist-sized rocks embedded in the ground. And they're not just sitting on top. They're, if you dig your back tire in, you're just going to dig into more of those. So finding traction between those little rocks and then whatever mud was on the ground between them was a big challenge for me. I definitely need to work on my finesse in those situations. And that's something you'll see pretty much be a trend throughout this video. The beginning looked pretty good. then you get to a hill like this, the camera makes it look totally flat. You know, I'm dropping the bike. There's guys stuck behind me. There's a guy at the bottom of this hill who said he'd tried it 5 times already. And I was just like, I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make it. And you just keep pushing, keep struggling. You can hear I'm breathing hard and the fan's on the bike. So, you know, this is not super far into the race. I think only 6 people actually finished a lap out of 120 who signed up for this race. It was pretty gnarly. It was a workout for sure. You know, I did the bad medicine hard enduro, and I thought, oh, this is hard. You know, it can't get any harder than this. But it was dry. I did Tennessee Knockout. It was wet. I thought, oh, it can't get any harder than this. This is gnarly, right? I, you know, made it through the first race, qualified for the second, you know, had no energy at the end, and broke my bike. And then I get to this, it's like, oh, this is a whole other thing, right? It's so slippery that I really think that this was harder terrain-wise for me than Tennessee Knockout was. It was all the stuff that I struggled to ride, and it was on a bike that I was still getting used to. And finding traction was just impossible. Where at Tennessee Knockout, yeah, there were spots like that, but it was grueling and doable everywhere. There were spots here where it was grueling and I didn't know how to do it. I didn't even know what the right technique to approach some spots was, besides riding at something and throwing my bike at it. The 300 is absolutely 100% a better bike for this than the 450. I love 4-strokes. I've been riding only 4-strokes for a few years now. The 300 is just better for this stuff. It doesn't stall, it doesn't flame out, it tractors real easy, and you can abuse the clutch a lot more, and it doesn't just dump that heat straight into the cooling system and then, you know, result in popping the radiator cap. I did end up making some changes after this race. I am still not sure if I'm sold on those air forks yet. I did do a kind of homebrew revalve on them after all this. I also had the red power valve spring on this bike when I rode it here. I didn't know that. It was just what it came with installed. And I was having a heck of a time keeping that back tire hooked up anytime I tried to put power down. I've since put the yellow power valve spring in, and it is way better for hard enduro. You can rev the engine up, and it's not gonna, you know, hit the power band, break the wheel free, and then, you know, send you off into the weeds, or just lose all your momentum because now you're just spinning. You can see, obviously, I'm struggling. This was one of the gold-silver splits. Saddleback has 3 classes. There's a bronze, a silver, and a gold. And the silver and the gold both do the same line, and bronze does an easier line. And this was one of the splits that was a harder section, and it was just muddy, slick, and really, really remarkably hard for someone of my skill level. I made it. But I was, you know, picking my bike up and pulling it up these rocks. You can see my front tire is totally clogged with mud too. I did not have a gummy front on. I used the Golden Tire GT 216 Fatty on the front. I don't know if it's the right choice or not. It's what I had on there. And it worked pretty well, but man, there was just nothing. Even the gummy on the rear was doing me no good. There were a couple course marshals here who had watched me struggle for, I don't even know how long it was. I had to have been on this hill for 10 minutes, you know. It's not super long. 10 minutes feels like a half hour. I guess he felt sorry for me and helped me get that front wheel up. So right after this was the first check. And I'm already tired, right at the first check. But I got my head wrapped around it again, kept going. It's like, okay, I just gotta keep moving. And even stuff like this where it's slick, muddy, off camber, you can see me kind of being sloppy, but keeping moving, right? Let's get over it and not stop. And that served me pretty well, but this was really a frustrating race for me. Starting shortly after this. Bottlenecks like the one in the creek, that happens. Getting stuck on a hard terrain, that happens too. But starting up here, I got stuck. And then I killed my battery. And I got stuck in a spot that was a nightmare to get out of. And it was this spot right here. So you see other people trying other lines. I thought my line here was better. And I didn't make it work. And if you watch my back tire and my fender, which you'll be able to see here in a second, there's a tree between them. So I go to pick my bike up, and it's now wedged on this slick hill where I can't pick it up. So I drug it out of there, I got the bike turned around, and then lo and behold, another guy does the exact same thing right in front of me. So while I'm trying to get out of here, there's 3 other guys who do the same thing I do. I guess it made me feel better about getting stuck. You can see this guy who just dropped his bike, he's now boiling over. So, we waited for him and waited for another guy who came through later. And this is where my battery died. Hit the button, click, hit the button, click. Okay, I guess I gotta learn how to kickstart a 300. Fortunately, it's not terrible to start. I'm tall, but it's still energy you don't want to spend. And then this guy comes through, and he gets stuck, and I spent 10 minutes helping him get through so that he could help me get through. At the end of the day, teamwork helps. You can see there's 4 other bikes in the background down, too. It was a tough spot. Started making ground, started getting some airflow, and I knew I was so frustrated after killing the battery, getting stuck in that spot for probably a half an hour, and that's not exaggerating. It's a real blow to your motivation and your morale when you're stuck in a spot that long, when you feel like, I should have been able to do this. Maybe struggle, but should have made it. So I burned a ton of energy there, and now I'm like, I don't want to have that problem again. If you listen on this hill, you can hear me trying to stay off the pipe. Because I'd go up hills like that, and it would get on the pipe and just spin up, and the back end would step out. So I make it up there, I'm thinking, okay, I'm moving, I'm making it. And it gets narrow. I'm looking up, right? You can see where my eyes are looking. And just like that, whoop. And I just, right there, it's like the frustration's back, Why am I wasting energy being an idiot? Like, this isn't smart riding. I could do better, There's a certain standard you hold yourself to, and I was not meeting my own standard.
Holy cow. I feel like Jello. It's so slick. Like, it's not muddy right here, but the whole thing has been so far. All the creeks, all the hills. They got stuck on a couple hills for an hour. Felt like probably a half hour though. 3 tries, 4 tries. Never done anything like it before. This thing does hit pretty hard. when you get on the power going up hills.
You can hear my hit comment there. This was, so I had made it through another check, and there was a water stop, and I put a new battery in the GoPro. So by this point, I'd made it across some nasty stuff. I was like, okay, this is going to be a new thing. Let's try again.
Oh, that's barbed wire. Really?
So I get stuck in this barbed wire for, no joke, according to the GoPro, half an hour.
Makes me sick.
And I didn't have a way to cut that barbed wire out of the way, so I was dragging the bike around, and every time I got on the power, because I was trying to go uphill to get out of this fence, the back tire would just suck it in tighter. So I burned a ton more energy, lost a ton more time, and of course generated that much more frustration. So, again, this was it was a frustrating race for me with stuff like that happening and just burning massive amounts of time that I didn't feel like I should be burning. But, I'm able to shake it off a little bit, and I keep going. We're rolling along, and it's just dumb stuff like this, right? You see the back end slide down this hill, and I had one dumb thing after another, and it was a mental struggle for me, but I knew I had to keep going, pull myself together, and see how far I can get. And so that's what I did. I mean, it was trying to get up these hills, no run up, right? There's no alternate line. And you're just beating the crap out of the bike trying to find traction. I felt so bad for the bike. I mean, it had 8.5 hours on it when I bought it, probably 11 hours on it for this race, and I'm abusing the crap out of it. And I did boil it over twice, just not a lot, but enough that I got it shut off. You can see how slick it is here. It's just an ice skating rink, and there's a couple guys down the hill crashed too. And down I go. Fortunately, that was probably the worst down I had from a surprise fall of the whole race. And I decided to just try to roll with the engine off and just get down, right? Use gravity. Since I had no electric start anymore. And like any modern KTM owner knows, those little rubber things in the bar mounts twist when you go down, so I had to twist them back because nothing was straight. So I was able to get it all straightened out and get moving again. And this next bit will look like a mistake, it'll look bad. I was so happy with this. Because that tree that other guy's bike was pointed at, I crashed past it.
Oh, man.
So I was able to just pull my bike down the hill and keep going. Now, it's always tough for me because there were a bunch of guys stuck, and I had to help them so that I could get through. And maybe it was just me being too nice. I'm still learning what the etiquette is, but I spent 20 minutes, according to the GoPro footage, helping other people here so I could get through when I probably should have just hit it and kept going because it's just burning more energy, a lot more energy. So I get out of there, I'm kind of frustrated, like, okay, we're gonna go. And I'm, the bike does great in the rocks. I'm more confident in the rocks, so I'm like, okay, let's do this, I can do it. And, the GoPro battery died not super long after this, and there were a bunch more hills that took me, a couple tries to get up. And eventually, you know, I rode up the big creek section. I think I made it to check 4. I can't remember if it was 3 or 4, but it was in the creek on the flat rocks, and there was a split there. And it took me 4 tries to get up the hill climb in the split. 3 tries to get up the hill climb in the split. And I didn't make it much further past that before I timed out. So I didn't make it as far in as I would like, but it was still good enough for, I think I ended up 51st out of about 120 riders, and I was 28th out of 30. It's either 26th or 28th out of 38 riders or something, so about a mid-pack finish. This hill, this side hill, I tried many times, and again, you know, I cut a lot of this out. I wasted 45 minutes here, no joke, 45 minutes, trying to do this side hill over and over. And if you look off to the right, you'll see all the bikes down the hill, because everybody's struggling. I mean, it looks like the camera's mounted on my helmet sideways.
That could have been worse.
And there's just bikes everywhere. We were all stuck here for a long time. And eventually, I made it out, and I was thrilled. I was like, okay, we're gonna go. And you know, there were other challenges after this, and I made it through them, and I was proud of how I made it through them until that split at the end. And so I made it up that hill finally, and I had a dumb crash, you know, downhill off camber, and I roll down it with the engine off, and I accidentally bump started the bike. And that shot me down a hill that I had no chance of recovering from. It aimed back down towards that creek I'd climbed out of. I was still in the split section. And I walked back to where the check was and talked to them and said, hey, I'm not going to get out of here. And it took 2 sweet guys helping me out to get me out, lift the bike down into the creek, and make it back. So not the finish I wanted for my first Saddleback event, but there's a lot of stuff that just could have gone better. There's a lot of stuff I can do better. The bike's set up better now. I'm hoping next time I can turn it around and, you know, again, learned a lot, figured a lot of techniques out, figured a new bike out a little bit. So we'll come back, do it again, and all I can hope for is just keep improving.